Very well, man. Very well. Thanks.
It's always amazing seeing your face. Always,
Likewise, my brother.
always, always. And thank you for doing this. I know beyond everything else how busy you are. I know how busy your schedule is. So every time you say, "Kola, I can't do this or I don't have time," trust me, I totally understand. And I really appreciate you coming on this.
Thanks
Um,
for understanding.
Yes, sir. So, like I said, I promise we won't take too much of your time. We'll try and go straight to the point as fast as we can, and try to get meaning into everything we'll be discussing today. So this is how we do it. First thing, I try to remind everyone why we're doing this,
Hmm.
which is actually very important for us. So they understand why we're doing this. Then I let you introduce yourself. Then we take the conversation from there. So first thing first, to our viewers, this is why we're doing this. If not for the pandemic happening globally, so this week would have been the third edition of our conference, the Business of Photography Conference. And we started this conference to drive conversation within the photography industry, basically the creative industry, but focus on the photography industry. And this is what we've been doing in the last 3 years. We've been pushing creatives to be forward thinking, to think way ahead of time, then to drive conversations about the challenges of the industry, bring people from other industries to actually understand this industry so that we can actually grow this industry together. We want to make it a bankable industry, which is one of the biggest challenges we have now. So that's why we drive this conversation. We make people come, discuss, people from different walks of life, to actually discuss and show the viability of the industry as a business and revenue generating industry that can actually add value, not just to the immediate community, but to the nation in general. So, which is why we're now doing this, because we couldn't hold it on the 21st, which was supposed to be the last Tuesday. We're taking it
Hmm.
online. And it's interesting because the theme for this year is photography and the technology evolution. So to now say that we're not going to be using technology to actually have this conversation makes it even really interesting. So that's why we're doing this conference. And once again, I want to say thank you, Mr. Akin Oyebode, for your time and joining us for this.
Thanks, bro.
Yes, good. So
Thanks.
now we'll let you introduce yourself, then we'll start out on the conversation.
Okay. My name is Akin Oyebode. Today, I'm the special advisor to the governor of Ekiti State on investment, trade, and innovation. Before that, I had the honor and privilege of leading the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, which was Governor Ambode's signature project in helping to create jobs across Lagos. And before that, I also had the privilege of leading Stanbic IBTC's SME banking business across Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and thank you. And definitely, I mean, you don't have to tell anybody. Once you mention Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, even if nobody understands anything, we all see what you've done with the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, coming in as the pioneer CEO, how you created an amazing team, what the team is doing, for Lagosians and all of that. So we want to say thank you for joining.
Thank you.
So quickly, I'll go into the first stage of the conversation, which is what has been bugging everybody's mind right now.
Mhm.
What is going to happen to the most vulnerable part of the business sector, which is the small business, the SME? What is going to happen? That's what is scaring everybody right now. The big businesses might be able to, because they've got structures that might not totally have expected something like this, but then they've got a robust structure that can actually take care of shocks like this. But for the small business, this is not something any small business would have anticipated. And unfortunately for us, I think because we're a developing economy, in recent years, we're starting to focus on the power of the SME and small businesses. So I'm not sure how much the government actually has planned and in store for SME. So the first question is this: what do you think will be the fate? I mean, it's a question nobody wants to answer because nobody can
Mhm.
actually predict it. But what will be the fate, or what will be the fate of SME in Nigeria in a period like this and post a period like this?
So like I've said to a few people
Mm,
who have asked me, I don't think there's a post-COVID period per se. I think
mm,
we're going to have to live with the virus and manage it as best as we can.
mm,
Um, Slow the infection rates, potentially, ultimately get some preventive vaccination
mm,
um, to curb what is today a pandemic.
mm,
But I think that on one hand, small businesses usually have less capital, so they are less able to, to withstand what you might call seismic shifts in the economy.
mm, mm,
But on the flip side, small businesses are more nimble, and
mm,
are able to adapt to change a lot faster than the large businesses. So if you're a large
mm,
business, if you've invested billions of naira in a factory, you
mm.
can't really just say, hey, pack it up and go away.
And go.
You are going to have to try to figure out how to make
Mm,
that factory work, regardless
mm,
of the limitations. But
mm,
if you're a small business where your investment is literally, you've trained yourself, you've got two cameras, maybe not two, maybe you've got five
mm,
cameras, you've got your
mm,
lens, you
mm,
know, it's fairly easy to say to yourself, okay, maybe even this pandemic is prevalent in Lagos, right? It's fairly easy to say, let me get myself tested and move to another city. So
mm,
you're geographically mobile and nimble.
mm,
Um, to a large extent, I would say that small businesses being nimble can adapt, I think, a bit better.
mm,
The creative businesses, which is I know what you're really more interested
mm,
in, I
mm.
also think can be a lot more nimble with how they respond in these times.
Okay.
We're seeing that one of the big things I think for me is just data penetration, right? And ensuring that people have a lot more access to data.
Mm,
I mean, a few days ago, I was in an auction, and it was supposed to be a COVID support auction. And it didn't stop me from buying the art I wanted. Yes, I haven't picked up the
mm.
physical piece, but I've done that transaction, right? And I imagine that there were
Okay.
a few bidders online buying art. It's not the same experience as being in a physical auction or visiting a gallery. But
Mm-hmm.
the point is that the commerce behind visual arts can still happen. Um,
Mm,
I mean, the other day I've seen now 3 or 4 Instagram live battles, music battles, whether it was
mm,
Riza and
mm,
DJ Premier,
mm,
whether it's Babyface and
mm,
Teddy Riley, I mean, Lil Jon and T-Pain. I mean, these things have literally changed the way we consume music, right?
mm,
Um, the other day, I mean, every Friday, which is something I now look forward to. Hopefully, he's going to do one today. Mr.
mm,
Solek does a live
mm. Yeah.
live show on Instagram, right? And when he
Mm.
starts the show, he puts his cash app there, he puts his bank details there, and if you
Mm.
spray him digitally, he'll spend the next 5 minutes singing your praises,
Signal
right?
back
I
you.
mean, it's it, it's
Interesting.
it, I mean, it's different from watching him perform live, but the music is
Mm,
there. All of a sudden, I'm in Lagos, I can listen to Solek in London. So I think
mm,
that, to be honest, the creative businesses have a great opportunity to use technology to innovate. Um, how much you can use it, I mean, is debatable, but I think there's an opportunity
mm,
there. The second thing I'll
mm,
say is that, like I said on the live I
mm,
was on, cash is
mhm.
king, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so for someone in photography, one of the things I advise them to do is to say, look, you know what? Maybe we think this pandemic is going to go away in August or September or
Mm,
whenever. Different people have
mm,
different predictions, right?
yeah.
But you could easily be saying to your clients today that, look, because I recognize there's a challenge around XYZ,
Mm.
I will give you a 50% discount if you book today, right? Um,
Interesting.
so so if you say to me, well, you want to take family portraits, etc., whatever it is, right? My normal charge out rate will be X. Because there's a
Mm,
pandemic, we're all worried, etc. I'll front load the thing. If you pay now, I'll do it to you for at 50, 60%, right? So what you're
mm,
finding is that people who have cash will take advantage
mm,
of those discounts,
mm,
and the entrepreneurs themselves will start to hold some cash reserves in hand. So, you've got
mhm,
to trade it off. You've got to be able to sell your intellectual property at a
mm,
time like
mm,
this. So that's how I would say that you start to think about how to position yourself for clients,
mm.
because the stock you have, which is different from a physical manufacturing business, is really talent and intellectual property.
Yeah.
So it's not something you're storing in a factory, in a
Mm,
warehouse, right? It's literally your time that you're selling. And so you can easily sell that time forward, and recognize that, look, I can unlock liquidity today because those needs are not going away. I mean, if anything, during a pandemic like this, people tend to be a lot more in touch with themselves. They tend to find the essence of why they're alive. They think about all sorts of different things. There's a lot of things that you can tap into with that mindset, where people will even normally now say, hey, you only live once, I might as well do the things I always wanted to do, right now. So I think that there's an opportunity there to build an emotional connection with your clients. And there's an opportunity to unlock some liquidity from that. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom is the point, right? It's a difficult period. I don't think we came out here to discuss whether it's a difficult period or not. I think we all know it's a difficult period, right? So it's how to maximize the opportunities therein, So in this whole period of difficulty, Zoom has grown to 300 million daily active users. I mean, not like they want a pandemic to continue, but you can tell that even if, the effects of COVID-19 tail away a bit, people are going to embrace digital platforms like that. Maybe not every day, but now I have a minimum of 4 or 5 meetings on Zoom daily, right? I mean, I'd never even watched an Instagram live before COVID-19. Now this is my second I'm doing, right? So all of a sudden, you start to see that it changes human behavior, and it changes it for the long haul. So some people will suffer as it happens in any industry. And I always tell people that one of the best things you can do is, if you're in an industry that's likely to tank, is to be at peace with that decision and pivot immediately. You can't fight it, So I mean, I always use examples like, look, if you think about today, it's unlikely that we're ever going to have a physical gathering of 50 or more people for the longest time, right?
Definitely.
Even if the restrictions ease. So there are some things that will have to change, right? In photography, for example, there won't be big parties for you to photograph. There won't be a massive need for makeup artists. You've got to think about people who do food and beverages, right? Event planners, etc. Those businesses will struggle a bit. But you'll find that even in that time, there's an opportunity for photographers to morph into something else, to document places, to document families. So there are many opportunities, I would say. If you think about even the fashion industry, I feel will suffer a bit, right? Because with the lack of places to go, people tend to want to buy fewer, I would say, high-end clothes. So you've got to start to figure out, what kind of clothes do I start to design? I mean, the other day we saw Tiffany Amber has converted a part of her business to making protective personal equipment.
Yes, and clothes for medical personnel.
Correct. Today there's a possibility in the country that we are going to have a situation where you won't be able to leave your house without covering your nose and mouth.
Yes.
And as with everything Nigerian, we're going to move from wearing bland regular masks to becoming fashionistas with masks. And so all of this, so I mean, you see, the point is that within a downturn, you've got to find an opportunity. But ultimately the message is always the same: cash is king all the time. But even more so now.
Fantastic. Thank you. Like, wow, that's why I keep saying. So guys, that's why I said I'm always excited when I speak to him. I'm looking at notes I've made in like the shortest time possible. And I like the fact that you refer to the fact that, smaller companies, smaller businesses, SMEs are able to adapt faster, Before this, we had a conversation with a creative in South Africa who actually travels and run projects in about 3 continents. And, he gave a very, depressing illustration of a company that one of their clients just bought, and they were, about, creating a couple of campaigns for them. And the company is a very, old, age-long company in France, and they just bought this, fabric making company, that does unique designs and all of that. And they bought the company, bought the staffs. But unfortunately, because of the age of this company and the prestige they put into their brand, 60%, no,